Coming up on Nebraska Stories, racing on the winding roads of the Sandhills, exploring art at the intersection of race and identity, and restoring Minden's pioneer village.
The Sandhills is one of the prettiest places there is. I love it here. I wouldn't live anywhere else.
The Nebraska Sandhills are known for beauty and serenity, but for one summer weekend each year, they're known for speed.
Well, the Sandhills Open Road Challenge is what we call an open road race, 29 miles up to close to Highway 2, 26 miles back. Unfortunately, right now is a pretty rough road. The faster you go, the smoother it is. It's a rush, as far as I'm concerned, always has been.
Joe Chown grew up in the Sandhills. All these years later, he's still here. He combined his love of place with a dream to start an open road race in Nebraska, working to make it a reality.
In the year 2000, I bought my first Corvette and I drove the road and I thought, well, that would be really cool to do this. And I knew that there was an event in Nevada where they closed a public road to have an open road race. And so I thought, well, if they can do it in Nevada, maybe we can do it in Nebraska. And luckily, there were enough people that helped me and glommed onto the idea and supported it, and we got it done.
With 34 cars the first year, the event now sells out each year at 140 entries.
I think probably we've had at least 40 states over the years represented, and Canada. Typically it's someone who has a car that they want to get out and be able to drive the car without worrying about being apprehended by the constabulary.
My friend saw the loop-to-loop online and he entered it, and then his navigator backed out at the last minute. So I was at work with him. He said, I'm going to this race this weekend. I need a navigator. You seem to like doing silly things. You want to come with me? And I said, yeah, sure. I was hooked pretty much after one time on the loop-to-loop.
We had a 49 Cadillac one year, and to McLarens, to Ferraris, Lamborghinis, lots of Corvettes, Mustangs, Camaros. As long as it meets the safety qualifications, they're good to go. It is a timed event, and it is not a wheel-to-wheel race. So you select a time bracket to be in. Let's say you enter the 110 mile an hour class. The goal is to average closest to 110 miles an hour. So the winner is the driver that gets closest to the average.
The festivities start Thursday with a loop-to-loop race. This is a 21-mile open road course that goes from Halsey to Purdom. Friday is a mile-and-half-mile shootout, followed by a parade and car show. The weekend wraps up Saturday with the 55-mile Sandhills Open Road Challenge. The route starts in Arnold, heads north to Dunning, and ends just outside of Arnold. There are only 4 drivers who have been a part of the race every year since it started in 2001. One is Joe, another is Lyle Eckberg.
Lyle Eckberg, what a guy. Lyle's terrific, good guy. Lyle was one of the first people to sign up for the SRC. He and his boy, Nick was, I think, 17, 18 at the time, and they have a 1965 Corvette, and it has been a father-son project. And they show up faithfully every year, and it is by far the loudest car that's ever been here. He fires that thing up, you can hear it in Dunning, I think.
It has always been the loudest car. There are a couple now that are getting that way, but This is the loudest, most obnoxious car there is.
Weeks before the challenge, the Eckbergs spend time getting this car ready. Living in Wakefield, they work together, volunteer together, live next to each other, and play together.
It's pretty good if the kid calls the old man up and wants to go do something with the car, you know. Pretty good relationship if you can do something together. We don't fish or stuff like that, but we definitely do car things together.
You know, back 22 years ago when we started doing some of this stuff, it was a lot of him teaching me, and he still thinks he's a little faster than me, and that's okay.
I am. I'm still better.
A lot of guys at the open road races, they race both legs, and they've got a navigator that helps them through the whole thing, and us switching makes it a little more complicated, but it's a lot more fun that way, I think.
For some car lovers, it's all about the looks. That's not the case for Lyle and Nick with this car.
Well, it was junk. Been spray painted on the inside, the motor didn't run, had fender tore off of it and everything, so, you know, it was junk, but the price was right, and of course I like projects, so I did what you would call a frame-off restoration and put it back together to original.
Over the years, him and I were having more fun going to races and car shows, so eventually we just started stripping off all the creature comforts and making it more into a race car, and that's all it is now. It's not very fun to go a 10-mile cruise in it anymore, but to go racing, that's where it's at now.
Well, some of my purist Corvette buddies weren't very happy with me because I took a desirable car and turned it into a race car. But Nick's comment is, leave it as a race car. I mean, it could be put to original, but that'd be ridiculous. It costs you more than the car's worth, and this is way more fun.
With the unique landscape as a backdrop, the Sandhills Open Road Challenge is one of only a few road races across the country.
The thing that really separates the Sandhills Open Road Challenge from the other events is the people in the community. When you come here, you're a hero. Probably almost half of our drivers are housed with private families in Arnold because there's only one motel. Well, actually there's two, but the rooms are very limited.
In the town of 600 people, those hotels combine for only 15 rooms total. Not only does the SORC introduce participants to the Sandhills, organizers are proud of the economic boost it provides to Arnold and surrounding communities.
The SORC has been a real boon to the area. We've exceeded well over $1 million. I'd say probably we're in the $1.5 million range now, that contributions that we've made to local organizations, fire department, schools, theater, and so on. We give a lot of scholarships, playground equipment.
SORC is one of the best things that has ever happened to Arnold. It's just a fabulous organization, and it's wonderful that they bring it to our town.
James and Carl Luby are in their second year competing at the SORC.
So this is a one-owner car. I bought it brand new in '79. Drove it as my daily car for about 10 years. And
put about 100,000 miles on it. Everybody wants a whole lot of horsepower and a whole lot of car, and 90% of it is driver. You just got to be able to get the most out of it, and we're still working on that.
Mother-daughter team Mariah and Terry Schneider enjoy carrying on the tradition started by their late father and husband, Fred.
Well, what we are doing here today is we are going to do some racing. We've been doing it for a few years, but it's a really nice open road challenge where you're just trying to meet an average speed. So we're in the 80-mile-an-hour class, so we can still have fun and not have to worry about not making it back. So we're just going to try and hit our perfect time without any snafus.
No losing my glasses.
She did that her
no
first
dropping
year.
the stopwatch.
That
No,
was
not
second
starting
year.
the stopwatch.
Second year.
No trying to shut a door while you're going down the road and going like this.
First year.
No alarms going off in the car.
Second year. We've had a really exciting couple years since we've started driving. My dad did it for 19 years, and then he passed away, and so we've been doing it since then. And it's been very exciting.
This is Nick Eckberg and Lyle Eckberg. Yeah, they're from Wakefield, Nebraska. 22nd year, and every year they've been in that blue Corvette.
We had to be a little nicer to the car this year. Our rear end's got a couple issues, so we had to take it a little easier than we normally do.
It's going clunk, clunk, clunk. But we made it, so I know a guy that can fix it. That's me, of course.
It's always good when you can drive the car to the trailer when you're done.
Fuel pump went out, so we got off the start line into second gear, and then we kind of just lost all our power.
It just starts spitting, sputtering. She drives. It's her fault.
Yeah. So we got over onto the side of the road, and there were some expletives being shared, and then she remembered that we're supposed to wave a blue flag, so we were trying to get the blue flag out.
And then we tried to push it more off to the side. So we were the first ones out, first ones back, first ones off the road.
It was pretty disappointing because we have been out, like my dad was out here for 19 years and we've been coming out. So for 20 years, we finished every single race. So now we have that where we got a did not finish DNF.
In the 105 mile an hour class, in third place, Nick Eckberg and Lyle Eckberg with a speed of 0.484 seconds slow.
There's nothing wrong with third place.
The scenery along this road is wonderful. The only thing about it is that when you're driving, you really don't have the time to appreciate it. You need to be watching, in front of you, and you can't allow yourself to be distracted.
To be honest, I know when something is done because it will strike me. I'll look at it and I'll think, that's beautiful. Woodcuts have a line quality that you can't capture in any other medium. They're striking, they're graphic, and they're hard to ignore, which is part of why I love them. I've been using them because I carve very quickly and I paint very slowly, and so when I'm asked to do projects, it's sometimes a matter of efficiency. How can I make a really big, beautiful image without taking the rest of my life to do it? And so the woodcuts have been a way of doing that. My name is Catherine Weiss, and I'm an artist and a community arts organizer. The woodcut figures require a little bit of tendinitis, some low-cost wood, and a lot of labor. So the woodcut figures are a lot of work. I make them life-size, and so some people will scan like a small block and then print it very large. I don't do that. I start with a very large piece of wood, 4 foot by 8, and I cut it down, and then I kind of seam them together because they can't roll through a press bed if they're too big. I don't think I was ever making particularly small work, but I've gradually really embraced and preferred making my work large scale. A large component of that is I so often see like Black people being minimized or being marginalized, and so like why not make the figure as large as life? Why not make the body present with you, with the viewer, so that it's as if you're being confronted by another person? And I really like that experience and the like sort of relationship that you have with a figure when it is the same size as you, and you enter into that work in a more immersive way than you would if you saw like a small kind of truncated body. I think the question I'm trying to answer through my work is, who am I, and what impact does that have on other people? How does that identity function in society? Yeah. Oh, do I like that? Being a Black Nebraskan is a very specific experience because most Black Nebraskans are surrounded by white people, because 90% of our state is white and like more than 90% of our city is white. And so it means that you're oftentimes in isolation, or you're oftentimes like a token. And so processing what it means to form an identity in absence of your peers at times can be really challenging. Sometimes I don't know what part of my identity I'm processing because I'm an intersectional being, and we're all intersectional beings. And I think that's one of the main things I'm trying to communicate, is that Blackness is not monolithic. Blackness looks like me. Blackness could look like a white passing person. Blackness could look like a lot of different things. But often within a shared identity, there's people of very many different sorts sharing space. I don't think art in and of itself changes things, but I think that the artist sitting down and asking something of the viewer requires them to first ask something of themselves. And so it means there's all these creative people out here that have questions and that are looking for answers. And I think that self-reflection is the beginning of social movement. Images are powerful and representation is powerful. And that's what I've been really excited about, is that there are so many opportunities to do that. I think one really important tool for countering like monolithic narratives of Blackness is to ask people, what is your experience? And there's so many similarities, there's also so many differences, and all of that is like this big, beautiful umbrella, which is the Black identity. And I think leaning into the individual narrative and not the propagandistic image of a Black person, which can often become stereotype, but leaning into the person means that we're not like re-objectifying or re-dehumanizing the Black body. And so that's something that I am really leaning into within my own practice. I made 2 pieces of Dwight Brown in 2020 and 2021. And the first one is sort of an interrogation of gender. It's like kind of dripping with like glitziness, and this is like a man who identifies as a straight, but his gender expression is like liberated and it's free. And I was really excited just to see him owning his own space and not limiting that to one version of itself. And I thought, like, how gorgeous is that? Like, let's celebrate it. I was so happy because I had worked on this giant, like 7-foot wide painting for a year, and I was finally showing it. I got to show it in my neighborhood, and there was a mom that came up to me who was Hispanic, and her daughter was African American and Hispanic, so she was a multiracial girl, and she was like, I am so excited to like give this piece to my daughter because she's seeing like art by a Nebraska artist of someone that looks like her. And it's like those little moments where people feel seen and they know that their experience is not a solitary one, but it's one shared. I think that was really powerful. And just to see the hundreds of people that like crowded into this tiny room to support the like 5 artists that were showing that day, it was beautiful.
I just got accepted to Yale School of Art on Wednesday, and I'm really glad I waited and asked for what I wanted because I just got accepted. I need to dive into what my experience of Blackness is and not continue to stereotype myself by saying I need to tell someone else's story, but that my story is important enough, and that Dwight's story and Joelle's story and my mom's story, these are stories important enough to tell in rural Nebraska, in Lincoln, in the suburbs, like wherever it is, like there's Black people and they're important and they matter. And I think that was a really challenging place for me to get to because I had so much tension around feeling like I wasn't enough or feeling like I was too much. And so this work, I think, in me celebrating other Black people and other multiracial people, I think it's also allowed for me to celebrate myself.
They've been pointing the way for more than 60 years. On Interstate 80, And on the road to Minden, hand-painted signs promising such wonders as antique automobiles and bells of all types. And on each of these signs is one name.
For thousands of years, man lived quite simply. Then, like a sleeping giant, our world was awakened. Man has progressed from open hearths, grease lamps, and ox carts to television, supersonic speed, and atomic power. At Pioneer Village, you'll see the actual development of this astounding progress as it was unfolded by our forefathers and by ourselves.
Harold Warp was born in 1903 in Minden. He moved to Chicago in 1924 to start the company Warp Brothers Plexiglass with his brothers.
They had a patent for greenhouse material that he designed and created himself in Nebraska, which proved to grow bigger, fatter chickens throughout the winter because it allowed the UV rays to come in through the plastic.
He also survived the Depression. A lot of people lost everything they had in 1929, but not Harold. And then in World War II, Warp Plastics had the contract for, if not all, for most of the plexiglass that was used in all the airplanes that we built. And we built 88,000 airplanes in World War II, and they all needed a lot of plexiglass.
By the end of the war, Warp began using his newfound wealth to create Pioneer Village.
He was very, very proud of it. I think perhaps more proud of this than he was in his own achievements. He was sentimental, and that was the basis of the beginning of the museum, stuff bought out of sentiment.
The first purchase Warp made for Pioneer Village? The one-room school he and his siblings attended.
You can see the actual paperwork of when he was a student, including his perfect attendance. The church that was within Minden, the sod house that his parents had built had disintegrated by the time he started the village, so they do have a replica.
All in all, Warp filled 28 buildings with his collections of cars, farm machinery, appliances, and anything else you can think of. Many with descriptions written by Warp himself and organized in chronological order.
His mission for Pioneer Village seemed to be watching the progress through the West, watching how people grew in technology, grew in development in agriculture and cars. He was fascinated with how people changed and developed over the years in all that they did. Didn't seem to be anything that he wasn't fascinated by.
People came from around the country to see Warp's collections. For decades, Pioneer Village was considered Nebraska's most popular tourist attraction, with 150,000 visitors each year.
At one time, I think more people worked for Pioneer Village than for any other single entity in the town. Between that and the number of people that came in and bought gas and went to the restaurants and hung around, there was a lot of money that got left in Minden because Pioneer Village was here.
Today, Monica Miller is the only full-time employee of Pioneer Village. She has worked there for more than 40 years.
I spend a lot of time working with the individual exhibits, new acquisitions, keeping track of where everything is. I wait on customers, I sweep floors, whatever needs done. Visitor attendance has fluctuated over the years and impacted our ability to have everything the way we would like to have it. But I'm still proud of it, even if it is careworn, just like I am.
In the 60s, I-80 wasn't complete. And so Highway 6 was one of the main thoroughfares. It pulled a lot of traffic off of Highway 6. And a lot of people, if they can't see it from the interstate, they're not going to take the time to get off.
In the last few years, there's been a renewed interest in preserving the museum.
People realize you're going to have to start fixing it up pretty soon, or it's going to be too late.
When Harold Warp died in the early 90s, his only son took the reins. But with Harold Jr.'s death in 2020, museum leadership was restructured and is now led by community volunteers. Restoration plans are already in the works.
We're doing some work around the outside in the museum. We are going to change some things around, but basically the museum is going to stay the same.
We have a lot of really good volunteers, but I don't know for how long you can count on volunteers. And so long-term funding is a major issue for us and something that we're really trying to resolve.
There was a period in time where the community was kind of separate from Pioneer Village, and it felt like there were two different things. But now it feels like we're really unified, and the community is really rallying around it.
I think it is a tremendously valuable resource, even if you're not interested in history. There's a family aspect to it that's very, very valuable, and we need that.
Watch more Nebraska stories on our website, Facebook, and YouTube. Nebraska Stories is funded in part by the Margaret and Martha Thomas Foundation and Humanities Nebraska and the Nebraska Cultural Endowment.